Well, welcome to Grimmfest 2025. I am joined by some of the creative team behind the movie Tribe, which we're screening this year. It's the international premiere.
It is.
Yeah, so we're very, very lucky and very privileged to have your movie with us. Tell us who you are and what your role was on the film.
So my name's Dan Asma. I'm the director.
Sergio Rocha, and I was a re-recorded mixer and sound designer.
And I'm Neil Rowe, and I was visual effects.
Well, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Tribe is a very unusual film. I guess you might describe it as a found footage movie, but it's not like any other found footage movie I've seen, really. Tell us a little bit about how this evolved. I mean, maybe just describe the film a little bit to start with so that people get a sense of what it is, because not many people have seen it.
Right.
Tell us that first.
So it's the story of a retired professor who has kind of he's decided to pursue kind of being a social media personality, but he's kind of stumbling through it, and his ex-wife kind of brings something to his attention about his past and a friendship that he's had over years, and it causes him to start to investigate something that happened in the past that he's not quite sure what the truth is. And look, a lot of found footage films kind of start with that screen life kind of vloggy kind of style. It's like, we knew that was going to feel like, oh, this is kind of terrain we've traveled before within the genre. But then once we got past it, once we got into the story of what happens to this guy up in the mountains as he's trying to investigate what happened to the friend of his, to his friend, that's where things start to fall apart, and the movie kind of morphs in on itself into something completely different, and it even steps away from the found footage genre.
It also deals with so many big concepts, and I suppose you might say, cosmic horror kind of world. The things that it touches upon are, I don't know. What were your influences on this film in terms of? I mean, there's like Lovecraft, maybe.
Yeah.
In terms of where this film takes you eventually.
Yeah, but absolutely. And Lovecraft was very much an influence. Also, I'm a huge fan of Cronenberg, so I feel like kind of mixing in a little bit of that, the kind of horror of the flesh, I think is really interesting. But the other thing I was trying to do was pursue something that felt a little bit more surreal, like where we go internal. And that was the goal with the character as he starts to go more or less insane. What was a device that we could create that allows us visually within the course of the film to also go internal? And this is where I have a little bit of a fear that found footage purists might be like, nah, you can't do that. But I also felt like, well, that's something that you don't see very much in the genre. So let's try and push it.
Yeah. Cool. So you were telling me before, and it's fascinating how this film came about, because it's very unconventional in terms of the process that you went through. Tell us a little bit about how it all started.
So we kind of come from a horror marketing background. We've been doing that for years. And so, which is obviously, cutting, producing and mixing short form. Storytelling in a very short form.
So cutting trailers for movies and stuff?
Yeah. And so the idea of taking those stories and compressing them down to 2.5 minutes is not, it could be challenging.
Very challenging.
And so we figured, okay, and because it's kind of bite-sized storytelling, what if we try to take what we know as marketers and apply it to like a horror, a story, and see if we can thread it together over a series of different episodes. Years ago, there was this thing called Quibi. I don't know if you remember this thing, and that didn't work. That did not. Yeah.
And right now it would have.
Yeah. Right now it would have. Exactly.
It's a little early.
So, and this was pre-pandemic, and the idea was, and there was a ton of money behind Quibi, and I think it was Katzenberg's idea or something like that. And it didn't work though, because people were not ready to digest media or episodic media on their phones. Right. Yeah. And so, but post-pandemic, it just felt like, hey, listen, let's explore that and let's use the tools that we have as short-form storytellers and to apply it into kind of a longer form. So what we did was we produced a number of these kind of seemingly real scenarios where this guy, retired professor, is out searching for a prehistoric ancient species of humans, and then let's post them online. But each one has to end with kind of a bit of a scare, either not necessarily a jump scare, a creepy kind of moment, like some kind of dread-filled moment. And let's see what happens, how the audience kind of reacts. And much to our surprise, like people were engaged, like they were really into it. And so then as soon as we realized, okay, wow, we've got an audience. Some people believe it, which we were like, wow, I can't believe they believe it. Then some people don't believe it, completely reject it. And, they were like moving on. And then there were the folks who really didn't believe it, but really enjoyed the storytelling. And that's the
So a lot of people thought it was real.
Absolutely. And so that's kind of where we figured, okay, well, look, let's go back.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. And
It's a little bit like how they plugged the Blair Witch Project in the early
100%.
stages.
That's exactly right. And the reason why Blair Witch, which I still consider to be kind of the gold standard, is because I remember years ago working in marketing, and they had a marketing campaign for Blair Witch that they were posting things online when the internet was incredibly so that people were like, is this a documentary? This is a documentary. This is real. And when you deal with a captive, very passionate audience who really believes that there could be something out there, whether it be Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster, they get very passionate about it. And so that was kind of the audience that we were trying to capture. And then once we started to see the numbers on social media go up, we were like, okay, let's take this and then now let's sculpt it into a long form story and then create all this kind of connective tissue to see the story through.
Very unusual way to have a finished feature film.
Yeah.
For this thing to kind of grow organically from short form content and eventually become a feature film.
Yeah.
So is some of that short form content in the finished film?
It is. Yeah, some of it is. And but
and then some of it isn't.
Right. Yeah, there is a ton of stuff that lives online that is not part of the film. And then there are storylines that live on that went down a certain path that don't, that just kind of dead end somewhere, basically. Okay. With like the character's gone missing. Like he's been gone for months. But then we were also able to, once we realized what was resonating with people, we were able to then pull in those moments, either go back, reshoot them, or then bring in guys like Neil and Sergio to like really sculpt them, do great visual effects, like, mix them. So it really did. So it felt less kind of, amateur and more like, okay, this is this. And being able to do that without the audience really effectively knowing too. That was the other thing.
I mean, it's a really captivating film. It's, you're drawn in right from the start and you really want to know what the hell is going on and get to the bottom of this kind of crazy mystery. And the more it unravels, the more it becomes kind of intense and huge in its potential scale. Yeah. But it's also quite scary in a lot of places. There's quite a few moments that are really kind of, really quite spooky. And there's a couple of jump scares in it that are really effective and stuff. So congratulations on all that. Guys, tell us a little bit about your involvement in the film. Let's start with you.
Well, it was interesting for me because I kind of got to see the story unravel in a very much slower timescale. But Dan first came to me over a freelance site and he just had this shot, didn't really tell me much about it, just said I need the makeup cleaned up in the shot. So I did this shot.
You didn't know each other?
Didn't know each other, no. And
you're in the UK?
I'm in the UK, Dan was in the States. And so we're just doing this all over online. It was all through messaging as well. We only just met today.
Yeah.
So we've never even seen each other.
Worked together for a year, just met.
Yeah.
That's great.
And
Grimmfest brought you together.
Yes. There you go.
And so then it just went quiet, and probably I think a week later, and then another couple of shots came through. And this time they were even weirder. And I can remember saying to my wife, I don't know what this is, but it's really interesting. And then as we started to do more shots and Dan started to tell me more about it, I was like, wow.
So you were doing all sorts of crazy visual effects work on
not
Dan.
really knowing where it fitted into the story or what the story was. It was just, here's a shot, it's really creepy, and we try to make it more creepy.
Yeah. You didn't know the context of it particularly.
No. And then eventually Dan showed me the TikTok feed he had going, which I had no idea about. And I started reading some of these messages, and people were believing there was a guy lost in the mountains and couldn't communicate back to the outside world. They were really freaking out and wanting people to send him help, weren't they? The messages were constantly going up.
Send the cops.
And it's like, wow. And then still then as it went along, then it started to turn into a feature, and then it just constantly surprises we would get over where the story was going and how it evolved. So yeah, it was a real ride, really cool to work on.
And all your work, VFX work, was essentially done remotely.
Yeah. So everything all just done over the internet. He would send me shots, I'd upload them back for him. Yeah.
And how about you?
Yeah.
Because you worked on the sound for this.
I did, and I got to see it again. I had heard that what Dan was doing before, and then he approached me and my sound designer Ryan, who I've been working with for years, but I've known Dan for 15 years, on the trailer side, and then I got to just binge the whole channel. I just watched it down before digging into the comments. I was like, let me just watch this down so I know what I'm working on. And it was incredible. You get to watch him acting, and then I got to see this.
Was that had you seen him act before?
In a couple of shorts and stuff, but this was like really him getting into character.
You forgot to say that you're in the film.
So I got to kind of just binge it and get the story and see where it's kind of left off. And then I started going into the comments, and it was really cool to see. I was like, wait, this thing has how many viewers? How many subscribers? And then you kind of read the comments. You're like, oh, let's keep this going. Let's see how real we can make it. And then it was all, with it being kind of run again, all the footage was kind of sounded a bit different, and maybe different mics on different days. So it was kind of making it all sound uniform.
Okay. Was that one of your, I was going to say, what were some of your challenges?
That was probably the biggest challenge. Maybe in some of the mics being, clip mics, got a lot of rustle and noise there, just making sure it's clean, but not too clean, because you want to make sure it sounds like found footage.
But I mean, I'm guessing material was shot in different ways, and some of it was maybe shot almost just with you and a camera, maybe, I don't know, and then some stuff was shot maybe with a bigger crew. Or
I remember delivering Sergio the OMF,
the turnover, I guess.
It was a nightmare. I was like, I had no idea how he was going to run through it, because there were so many different sources.
And that's why I told him, I'm like, I have to kind of group this and group the shots that are similar and make sure those all kind of sound alike, and maybe all the exterior shots kind of sound similar, because it is taking place in kind of the general same area. So that was the biggest kind of hurdle I went through. But and also not cleaning it up too much, because you want to make sure it sounds right. It sounds like it should.
Yeah, because that's part of the feel for the piece, isn't it? It doesn't want to be too kind of like.
No, you don't want to suck the life out of it. No, at all. So that was a challenge.
And being able also to be able to kind of add some really unbelievably beautiful sound design that you're not even conscious of, because that's the goal. Because you're like, oh, this is found footage.
So it's like, do you put a score on it? Do you not do you make a big orchestrated score? Does that feel right for a film like this?
That was kind of the conversation we had early on. I think Dan was like, no, I want this to be more sound design based, to make it feel uneasy, and then you could build tension with some of the score moments. But a lot of it was just like, no, let's just stay in the found footage kind of space and make sure it sounds right, and then make some really creepy creepy stuff. So it was real fun to work on.
Well, listen, guys, thank you so much for being with us. Do we know yet where anybody else outside of Grimmfest will be able to see the film? Do we have any release details yet?
No, not yet. Unfortunately, I think we're going to wait and see how things kind of how it performs at the festival, and then kind of maybe have some conversations. But listen, we are just grateful to be here. Honestly, Simeon, thank you for this. We're thrilled to be part of this festival, because it is a very, very cool festival. So this is our first step, and we'll see what happens from here.
Okay, well, guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, man.